Excellent. And now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our foundation chairman officially, as he's going to be our presenter today. Tom has been a member of our club since 2007. This is his second year as chairman of the Dallas Rotary Club's foundation. After graduating from the University of Texas with a degree in electrical engineering, Tom worked abroad for 10 years in Europe, Africa, Mexico, Central America, and Asia in engineering and management positions for the oil services company Schlumberger, where he last served as manager of South China. Tom began his current profession 26 years ago after earning an MBA from Harvard Business School. He's the founder and managing partner of Cadent Capital. Cadent provides comprehensive financial planning services and invests approximately $425 million for 150 families. The financial planning community selected Tom for the D Magazine list of best financial planners in Dallas every year since the award's inception. Cadent Capital has made the list of top wealth managers in Dallas every year since 2014. In 2016, Tom received the Honors Award from the Financial Planning Association of DFW in recognition of the contributions and commitment made to the financial planning profession and the FPA. The Financial Times named him one of the top 400 financial advisors in the country. He is our Dallas Rotary Club Foundation's chairperson and is doing a phenomenal job, and you're going to hear about it today. Please welcome Tom.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm pleased to be able to give this annual report. I'm really more of a numbers person, and speaking is going to tax me. So Dana's going to switch slides so I don't have to do too many things at once. We'll cover these big topics: history and purpose, board of trustees, some financial numbers, and then get to our awards recognitions. The foundation was established back in 1954, and so we're coming up on our 65th anniversary. One of our foundation founders was, I don't know if it was father or grandfather of Mark Cullum, so we come from a long line of very dedicated members. The first endeavors of our foundation were to make loans from the trust to qualified students for college. We also made an educational grant to student nurses training in Dallas hospitals. The foundation created the Student Loan Fund back in 1919, which became part of the foundation in 1954. And the fund was the first student loan fund established by any club in Rotary International. It was the genesis to the ambassadorial scholarship program with Rotary International. Just as education was important to the foundation in the beginning, still today we have over $1 million of our $3 million foundation assets dedicated to educational causes. The Board of Trustees, one of the things we did in this recent year is change the way that we're managed. Prior to a few years ago, the club had embedded in its bylaws how the officers were elected, how the transitions were made, and we discovered that in one of their iterations to the bylaws, they dropped all of the reference to the foundation. So we amended our trust document, which is our independent governing document for the foundation, to call for 15 trustees instead of the past 18. The three that are now going to be advisors to the club, or on the advisors to the foundation, are the president, past president, and president-elect of the club. That was done primarily to guarantee objectivity and minimize conflicts of interest for the club, having its hand in the pot of the foundation, if you know what I mean. Let's see. All of the foundation executive positions are 2-year terms. Trustees are on for 3 years. Every year we replace 4 of the trustees. We need people on the foundation who have numerical and financial sense, legal sense, but also those who represent the club, because our objective is to support the club in all of its projects. Let's see. These are the current Board of Trustees, all 18 of them, as they came onto the foundation in years past under the club's bylaws. Going forward, it'll be a slightly different mix. If you're here today, would you please stand up? Okay, these are our three committees. The executive committee, ensures the strategic and long-term view of the foundation. The investment committee was chaired by Tim Dwight for about a year and a half. He was also on the selection committee, which brought in our current investment advisor. Tim and that investment advisor saw eye to eye. They had a similar business model, and they merged, and now they're equal partners in Fireside Capital, who is managing the assets currently. So Tim stepped down and was replaced by Greg Wood only about a month ago. Greg has run, I think, 5 businesses. He's been a financial advisor in the past, so he'll be doing a good job to watch over the investment funds. Every 5 years, we do an RFP to make sure that the investment advisor we have is competent and charges us a good rate. So that won't come around for another 5 years or so, since Fireside was just chosen about a year and a half ago. The development committee is chaired by Heather Stevens. She's in charge of, raising awareness and bringing in the dollars to the birthday fund for estate gifts that you might give to the foundation through your will, and for major, fundraising campaigns like the Centennial Fund or Dreams for Scholars. Next slide, please. The foundation assets, all of my numbers are based on the audited financial statements we have. This latest audited report was only given to us about a month and a half ago. So these are the most current numbers on that report. June 30th of 18, we had $3.168 million. As of today, it's about $3.1 million. Last year was a difficult year in the market, but we're holding up. The foundation is managed as a single, the assets managed as a single investment fund, but through our accounting work of our bookkeeper, we segment that fund in terms of the type of assets that, the projects that are funded. Unrestricted means it's the blue, it's 58% of the assets. It can be allocated however the board of directors of the club desires. The permanently restricted funds are those that cannot be spent down. The principal is there for all of the future. The top few items, Dreams for Scholars, the Ted Buell Fund, Russ Ravel Scholarship Fund, Women of Rotary, those are all permanently restricted funds. Pretty much everything else is temporarily restricted. Still dedicated to a particular project, but it can be spent all in 1 year if we desire. There's more flexibility with those things. Dreams for Scholars is a little bit special in that what we see on the top is intended to indicate it's a permanently restricted fund, but we have some temporarily restricted Dreams funds. For example, just a few weeks ago, we announced an anonymous donor who is going to match dollar for dollar $32,000 of gifts, and that is to ensure 2 $32,000 scholarships for the next couple of years. The club made a commitment to our Dream students that we would give 2 a year, but the foundation assets really can only support 1 a year currently. And so we've had this donor come forward to help raise the money for the short term, just to bridge this gap from the 2 a year we used to give to the 1 a year we'll be given in the future. And that will be temporarily restricted because the money will come in, it can be spent out immediately, and it doesn't invade the permanently restricted funds that we have set aside. A lot of those lower level temporarily restricted fund accounts are kind of like pass-throughs. We'll raise money for the golf tournament and send it right out to the beneficiaries. We'll raise money for Ghana and we'll spend it on the Ghana trip. Okay, next slide. This shows how the assets have grown over time. I only had 7 years of audited statements that I analyzed. And what we're seeing on the bottom are the 3 segments of the fund. The blue is the temporarily restricted. The orange, which is sloping downward to the right, is the temporarily restricted. And the gray is the permanently restricted. What you notice from those 2 sloping lines at the bottom is that we're basically transferring the ownership type from temporarily restricted to permanently restricted. And that's done by spending the Eliasoff Fund, which is designated for scholarships, but from which principal can be spent, so that we maintain and grow the permanently restricted Dreams for Scholars Fund. At the top, the yellow line is the summation of all the components, and you see that bulge early on the left-hand side where it rises and then falls back down again. That's the impact of the Centennial Fund. When we raised money for the children's children's section of Klein Warren Park, we raised about $550,000. The money came in kind of quickly. We spent it out about $100,000 a year, and so that was an anomaly, which wouldn't normally happen. But if you just look at the trend of the assets from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, that's growing at about 2.5% a year, right about where we want to be. It's a little bit above our goal. We only want to maintain purchasing power over time. We'd love for the assets to grow constantly at about an inflation rate. And during that time, inflation was only 1.5%. But it was also a time where the economy was strong. We didn't have any recessions. The markets were strong. So that's probably a better return than we'll see going forward. Next slide. Currently, Fireside Capital Advisors is managing the assets. Their allocation is it's a well-diversified portfolio. We don't have any non-daily liquid types of investments. They're pretty much mutual funds and exchange-traded funds and allocated very similarly to how the funds had been invested in the past. Next slide. This was my effort to sort of piece together performance over history. Prior to May of 2012, I don't know that records were kept to track the actual long-term performance of the funds. But when Wells Fargo took over on a discretionary basis on that date, they reported very carefully their performance. And so for about 5.5 years, they annualized a return of a little over 7%. In the transition from Wells Fargo to our current advisor, Fireside, there was a gap of just a couple months where neither firm could adequately measure performance. So I just substituted in a proxy for a group of funds that were allocated very similar to our program as the gap for the performance during that time. And then we have Fireside's return since they took over. So by linking those 3 periods together, I calculated a 6.34% return over time of almost 7 years. Now that's the gross top line return of the account, and the foundation has expenses. We have a bookkeeper to account for all of our different funds. We pay for an annual audit, which by itself is around $18,000. We have direct expenses that we share with the club. So part of our executive director's fees, part of the office rent, part of the phones, part of all those things that have to be paid for. The foundation pays its percentage back to the club, and we call that shared overhead. And then if there's a special capital raising campaign like the Centennial Fund or Dreams for Scholars, we might spend extra dollars to help realize that special program. So historically, those expenses were about 2.6%. We think we can bring them down a little bit to 2. Those columns of numbers are past on the right and what we're projecting in the future. But just looking at the past, if we have 6.3% gross return, 2.6% of expenses, then we have contributions that come in, distributions that go out. At the end of the day, the portfolio grew at about 2.4%. Slightly different than the 2.7 on the prior slide because of the way averages are calculated versus compounding. But because that was greater than the 1.5% inflation rate, we're very pleased with that growth historically. We think going forward, we'll have some recessions, we'll have some bad markets. Returns won't average as high as they did in the past. But if we also bring down expenses by perhaps going to an every other year audit, which isn't required by law, but we've been doing it. Mainly that, we can get our growth rate right in line with inflation and be good for the future. Next slide, please. So for the past 7 years, because major projects come and go, to look at any one year doesn't give a good picture of what the foundation has helped the club do over time. The largest single campaign we've had over that time was the Clyde Warren Park Fund. Veterans programs have been going the entire period and regularly raises a large amount every year for their beneficiaries. Scholarships is large and ongoing, clean water, and so on. That average is about $333,000 a year that our club is able to do good in the world. Next slide. The bottom left column here says 408,000. Just looking at the last 3 years, this is the average of what the foundation has sent out in charitable, endeavors. What goes out has to come in, and what came in were member contributions of about $86,000, 21% of inflows. The two major projects that we run, the Salute to America's Veterans and Golf Tournament, were single large contributors. We have a few freebies here that I'm going to make a pitch to build because it's so easy to do, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. But these are rewards programs that once we sign up, it's just money that goes to the foundation from those organizations. Grants received, only if we do international work like in Ghana or Zambia would we apply for these grants. But that's a way we can leverage our good works through the district and Rotary International matching our funds. Tom Franklin talked a lot about that a few meetings ago very well, and we hope we can continue that kind of work. And then the portfolio itself is almost 40% of our expenditures. The growth, the dividends and interest and growth in the portfolio is a big part of what we can do as a club. Okay, next slide. The Amazon Smiles, Kroger, and Tom Thumb. I put together a 3 or 4 page PDF that Hillary is going to email to everyone, and it simply is the forms or the instructions to help you sign up for these things. For Kroger, you fill out a couple questions online. For Tom Thumb, you fill in a few blanks on a form and submit it at your local store. For Amazon Smiles, it's a real simple log on Amazon. Once that's done, forever and ever, unless you change it, you can designate the the Dallas Rotary Club Foundation as the recipient of about 0.5% of your purchases, and those organizations will send 0.5% of everything you buy straight to us, and it's just free money. So I hope you all will take advantage of it. We've always asked for birthday donations. That goes into the general unrestricted funds. You can always give directly to programs that are near and dear to your heart. When you write checks or transfer stock to us, if you just say, I want this to benefit a particular program, that goes into the temporarily restricted funds for that program, and we track it and spend it the way you desire. And as I said, you can write checks, you can give stock transfers, you can do this automatically through credit card deductions. Hillary can set you up on those things to make it sort of less burdensome. And always we love for you to think of us in your will, in your estate plan. Some of the largest gifts to the foundation and what's enabled it to get to the size it is largely through those estate gifts. So now we'll award and recognize the major contributors to our foundation. Yes.
If I could just mention one thing, a lot of the newer members may not be aware of it. At the time we did the Centennial Project for Clybourne Park, that was also when we funded and published our history. So we continue to benefit from that as we give that as a speaker's gift.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. We have a few recognitions where we'll ask you to come up to receive your award and have a photo made. So when I call your name, just come right on up. President Dana DeVance will present you with your award. We'll take a photograph, and then you can take your seat. These are the award giving levels. So when your cumulative giving passes these thresholds, we award you with that next level of honor. The Price Cross Partners is in honor of our founding father of the club, Price Cross. We have 46 Price Cross Partners, and our newest recipient, next slide, is Howell Jones. Howell, would you please come forward? Thank you, Hal, for your contributions. And if you find your name on this list, would you please stand up along with Howell? Any Price Cross Partners in the audience? Thank you. Cullum Patrons is our next level of award for giving of over $10,000. This award honors the Cullum family, a legacy family in our club. Mark, was it your father, grandfather who started the foundation? Grandfather? And his father was a founding member of the club? And we still have Mark with us, so we love that. We actually had one Cullum person that we would have honored, but some folks like to be anonymous, and so we won't call the person forward, but there was an addition that's just not shown. Okay, our next level is the Heritage Fellow. If you are a Heritage Fellow, would you please stand? Thank you. And I'm sorry, Brent Howell is our new Heritage Level awardee. Is Brent here? No. Okay. All right. We'll make sure Brent gets his trophy. Okay. And I don't think I asked the Heritage Fellow. Wait. The Cullum partners to stand. If you're a Cullum partner, would you please stand? Okay, good. I'm sorry, thank you. The next level at $50,000 and above is legacy donors. No new entrants to that category, but I saw Bob in the audience. Is Bill also here? Would you please stand up? And the 9/11 Society donors are for cumulative giving over $100,000. And Mason is almost always here, but I don't see him today. All right. Thank you. Yeah. I did want to mention about that matching gift offer to raise money for the Dream Scholarships. It's $32,000. And anyone who gives, I'm not sure what the deadline is, it gets doubled. And I got without even asking, I got a check today for $1,000 from Miles Itmore to help, get that thing rolling. So thank you, Miles. Okay. And the final recognition is for those who mention the Rotary Club Foundation in their state documents. If they've recognized us as a beneficiary of their, estate gift, these are the ones that have provided us some documentation to prove that we are shown in their state documents. We thank you all so much, and if you're here today, would you please stand up? All right, that almost concludes. I just want to say thank you again for giving. I love giving to the club because it's one of the few places where you can see the real benefit of your works. You can be involved in it. It's social, it's visible, it's controllable, and I think we're putting our money where our actions lie. And any amount will make you feel good, and it goes for a good cause. So that concludes my part of the presentation. Thank you, Dana. Oh, I got through pretty quickly, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Tell me about the Zambia fund. One of those things that was on there that I didn't recognize. You mentioned the other I didn't recognize was the Eliasov fund, but you explained that.
Okay, I think I'm going to ask someone who might know more about it than myself. It was a little bit before I was much involved. Ben, are you, or Tom Franklin, are you able to speak more to the van? Or Rosanna? Is Rosanna Sandlin here? No, Zambia. The
Zambian was a global grant that we did with Baylor, where we took dentists and nurses, and Rosanna was the one in the club that helped write that application, bring the opportunity to us, and I can't remember the dollar amounts. It was like maybe $15,000 that we put in, and Baylor put in $15,000, and we leveraged that with the RI and got maybe 30 or 40,000.
I think all combined it was around 100,000 when you put all the pieces together. Yeah.
For 2018, what was the average annual rate of return on the total funds we had invested?
For 18, the fund was down about 0.1%. It's come back in the first quarter of this year, and so we're pretty. In fact, I can't tell you that recent, but markets overall were down 4 or 5, 10%, depending on what asset class you're looking at. It was a tough time. I'm sure, but that negative year is incorporated into all the numbers that I presented. Okay, Bob.
With over $3 million in total in our fund, why were we only able to fund one scholarship this year without the owner of giving $32,000 in matching funds? It looks like we could have taken money from normal corpus of funds, that it's not restricted, and added into the scholarship monies from the Eliasov Fund and others to match the two that we've been giving in the past, two scholarships that we've been given in the past.
Okay.
Or in this foundation itself, from the beginning to this day, it seems like we would have taken additional money to make sure that we can always give two scholarships as long as the fund has money, the overall foundation has money.
Okay, I understand. First of all, it can happen. The club does have enough discretion to fund the scholarship. But in order to maintain what we call generational neutrality, to try to keep the fund growing over time, we've sort of formalized in the last year that the distributions from the corpus of the entire $3 million at the rate of 4% is as much as can be sustained, long term. So we let the club know that 4% of $3 million, called $120,000 budget, and they can allocate however they want among our different programs. But we have, long-term commitments and expectations to do so many things that, short of, canceling or not funding some of those other programs, 4% of the portion of the assets sort of designated for scholarships would only fund one. Let me tell you how we got into that sort of situation of giving two in the past and now suddenly breaking it down to one. The Dreams for Scholars campaign was a major effort, and we had some folks like Ben, Casey, and Heather spending a lot of time developing materials, calling on members one at a time to raise money. So we had a goal, an expectation of how much we could bring in. And the goal was enough to fund 2 scholarships. So from day one, we had a large Dreams program, a lot of students. We told them we're going to start funding 2 scholarships a year, and we started paying for those 2 scholarships a year even before we had any money. So we had outflows going on before we built up the fund to the full size of our goal. So that didn't allow it to grow quite as quickly. Some of the goal is met through state gifts, things that won't come till sometime in the future. So the money's not really there. And let's see, what was the other thing? And in fact, I think some of the pledges and some of the money that we hoped we would raise just didn't come in. So through a shortfall of not meeting our full goal, through the timing, and through a bit of an overcommitment, now the funds that we have in pocket, really 4% of those only fund 1 scholarship. But, through special fundraising efforts, through reallocation of funds in the future, we could do more. There's nothing that restricts, from an accounting standpoint, paying for those scholarships. But we also have a smaller number of students, smaller group currently than we had in the beginning, and one may be appropriate. But that's a club decision, a Dreams Scholarship Committee sort of decision. But it's more in the hands of the club now, since we've just said, here's the amount you can spend among all your programs. You decide how to allocate it. In the past, the foundation was kind of directing how many scholarships they could award based on our ideas of what we could eventually raise, which didn't all come true. Charles.
One scholarship. How many other scholarships being funded right now too? There's what, 6 other scholarships? Money's going out each year for other scholarships that go over a 4-year generation.
By other scholarships, you mean our club awarded scholarships?
That we're funding right now. So how many are currently funded?
I think it's 6. It's 7 right now. So it's $4,000 a semester. It's $8,000 a year times 7 is $42,000 a year is currently being spent, and we can't stop that. Yes, Dana.
So if we want to join the Golden Wheel Society, how do we do that?
Just notify the foundation chairman, notify Hillary, and say I've put you in my will, for example, and you just present a copy of your will, or at least the part of it that recognizes Rotary, so we have a way to know it's actual, and to somehow work with your executor if something happens to coordinate the transfer of the funds. Eric?
Another way to do that, is for someone to assign the life insurance policy proceeds.
That's right, and we've had both of those examples in our current Golden Wheel Society. Tom Franklin?
$32,000 match.
No, I don't. It's a little bit too soon. We think we have 6,000 to 8,000 that's already come in. Okay, I don't want to make this meeting go too long. Thank you very much.
Something for you. Tom. That was a great presentation. It's very informative to hear what's going on with our foundation. So we're really appreciative of the work you're doing as our chairman and the work that the foundation does to make all of our programs possible. So I know you already have a centennial book, so we didn't get a book for you, but we have more. We do. This is just a little token of our appreciation. This is a little stand that you put this on, and it's a little crystal globe that basically represents all the wonderful things that our foundation does under your directorship this year. So this is just a little token of our appreciation for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Great presentation. Oh. Thank you. All right. Thank you once again. Immediately following today's club meeting will be a Rotary Club of Dallas Board of Directors meeting just down the hall right here. So we always include any of our members who are interested in hearing about what's going on with our Board of Directors to feel free to join us. Please notice on our website, we've been doing a lot of updating. When you log in, under the membership area, under My Club Documents, you are going to be able to see all the board meeting packets and financials. So a huge thank you to Hillary for getting that done. Tomorrow evening is the much anticipated Cigar Caucus. So we will be very excited to see you all at the White Rock Boat Club at 5:30. If you have not already used the link in the email to prepay, please see Hillary today before you leave so that we can finalize the head count for our food order, because remember, we're having Mexican food. Next week, we will have former Dallas Mayor Ron Kirk, along with Dennis McQuistion, mediating questions from the audience. Please register yourself and any guests online ahead of time. We do expect attendance to be really high, so while you will likely have a seat whether you choose to RSVP or not, because Hillary's awesome and she'll make it happen, this will be a great opportunity for you to practice for our upcoming meeting on June the 5th, which will be RSVP only. So please take a moment to go online and RSVP today for next week's meeting so we can get a head count. And we thank you in advance for doing this, because you're really helping our club function more efficiently by doing so. Finally, Rotary membership is indeed an honor and a privilege, and we accept new members by invitation only. If you're a guest here today, which we know our guest, Nat, is already a member of Rotary, but we always want to encourage people to join Rotary, and if you love having a delicious lunch with excellent speakers while sitting with service-hearted, like-minded professionals and great friends, please inquire about membership. Anyone joining us on Facebook, please inquire about membership. So I hope to see you all next week, and until then, remember to share the gift of Rotary, be people of action, and continue to be the inspiration. In closing, Rotarians, please stand and recite with me of all the things that we think, say, and do. First. Second. To bear all concern. Third. Would build goodwill and friendships. Fourth. Would be beneficial to all concerned. And fifth. Yes, it is. Thank you very much for your attendance. We are adjourned.